going to get straight to the point. The Middle East right now is at an all-time high threat level for an all-out regional war or conflict. And this is not me saying this. This is Antony Blinken saying this as he evaluates the situation in the Middle East. And this is, of course, in reference to the one-way drone attack on the base in northern Jordan, where 3 U.S. soldiers lost their lives and 40 more were injured. And to make things even more situation critical, Joe Biden himself has gone out and said he does blame the country of Iran for the attacks that happened in Jordan. Now, the reason why this is a little conflicting is because originally the United States said this was Iranian-backed militant groups, but we know the country of Iran does not want war. We don't want war with Iran. But now that the U.S. president has said, I put the blame on Iran, the ball is in the U.S. court. What is the next move going to be? And we actually have some answers what the direction is going to be. And also, the United States is still scratching their head on what exactly happened in Jordan, because we have a lot of mixed reports and some confusion on the side of the Pentagon. Now, before we get into all of this, as you know, by just simply liking or commenting and turning on the notifications, you guys have managed to help this channel out so much. I do not have any sponsors on this YouTube channel, so again, it's all free if you do that, and it actually helps you out more than it helps me, so you can get the news. So like I stated before, President Biden has officially gone out and said the reason for the attack or the cause of the attack is directly correlated to Iran, and Joe Biden blames Iran. Now, I have to assume the person watching this video doesn't necessarily understand the difference between Iranian-backed militant groups and the country of Iran. What difference does it make if the title of Iranian-backed militant groups is in the title? Well, the difference is this. The United States has already been going after Iranian-backed militant groups. That could be anyone from the Houthis to the Islamic resistance in Iraq and other groups around the region, where the United States knows that there's a very low risk and reward if you go after these militant groups. By going after just localized militant groups, it stays rather local, and the United States knows it's not going to spread into a regional conflict. But now that Biden is name-dropping the country of Iran and calling Iran the reason and issue for the region in the Middle East and the attacks in Jordan, by going directly after the country of Iran, and I know a lot of you know this will cause an entire regional war where Iran has a professional military, but other terror small militant groups that could cause chaos throughout the Middle East and go after Western assets, specifically US assets. So that is the reason why this decision is a very, very important one for Biden. And guess what? He has made his decision according to reports he's made to the media. Joe Biden has also gone out and said that he has made his decision on what exactly the retaliation is going to be from the United States, and that is it. It seems that we are sort of left in a cliffhanger and that the United States is going to leave the world in anticipation for what is going to happen next. Now, what's interesting is that the country of Iran themselves, they truly think they're about to be in an all-out war, and they've already turned up their air defenses, and they are on high alert right now in their country and their military. There's also reports of the country of Iran shutting down localized militant groups to not go after other US assets in Iraq. This is because there is a worry that the country of Iraq is going to put the blame on Iran for using their militant groups to stir the pot in their country. I know this is a little confusing, and I promise we'll get back to Jordan, but you need to understand right now the country of Iran is in a very, very good favor with the country of Iraq. So they don't want to piss off the country of Iraq. So it makes total sense right now that there are a lot of reports that the United States and Iraq, it looks like they're not going to be receiving any attacks anytime soon, for the time being at least. And look, I monitor a lot in the Middle East, and it's been extremely quiet in the country of Iraq for the United States military. So these reports, they are sort of all falling together, and they are sort of making sense. But again, take it with a grain of salt every time Iran says they have nothing to do with anything, or they initiate some sort of peace deal. Because look, it's Iran, and anything could happen the next day. Now look, again, Joe Biden has said the United States is going to retaliate, and they will do something. And of course, the entirety of the media is saying it's going to happen quick and it's going to happen fast. Prepare, something's going to happen. But look, this, and I keep saying this, the Pentagon and this current administration is very patient. I'm sure out of nowhere we're going to see something rather big. But again, What you need to pay attention to is whether or not the president decides to go after localized militant groups in Syria or Jordan, or if the president truly decides to go after direct Iranian groups. Whether that's actually on Iranian soil, or if the United States waits until an Iranian general is caught lacking in Syria, or if Iranian military members are caught lacking in the countries of Iraq. We also have reports, and Iran has even said this publicly, that Iran is in the country of Yemen. So never deem out the country of Yemen, because right now that's almost being used as a playground, and I hate to use that analogy, but there almost seems to be like, as long as we use Yemen as a battlefield, almost like it's Vietnam, the country of Iran can do whatever they want, and the United States can do whatever they want without any repercussions, other than the people of Yemen suffering, which they still are, and the United States still knows that they have to figure out that humanitarian effort soon. Now, we do know that the United States is going to be beefing up the base that was attacked in Jordan. They're going to be sending more air defense assets, possibly Patriot missiles, things like that. And also, considering 40 soldiers have been injured and 3 more have lost their lives, you could assume that there's going to be a beefing up of garrison in that specific base. That specific region where this attack happened, only 15 miles north in a base called El Tamp Base, which has been confirmed a U.S. Special Forces base by the Pentagon themselves, that is the base that has been attacked day in and day out, and is usually the base that militant groups like to go after. This is because that specific base is in charge of watching any militant groups coming in from Iraq, trying to push in through Syria and to get into Israel, or to at least summon or localize groups in Syria to beef up their security within the region. Now, the Pentagon is admitting that the base that was attacked in Jordan, it was a very odd attack to happen. Specifically, the time of day where it happened in the morning. This is not how these militant groups do this between Iraq and Syria. Usually, you could assume these attacks to happen between around 2 p.m., 3 p.m., never really at night because, look, the United States military owns the night. So, as I was scouring the internet, this is totally true. I can almost not find a single report where these militant groups performed an attack really early in the day, because again, this sort of could be correlating at a nighttime raid where the United States has superior thermals and just superior assets to use their night vision capabilities to either stop an attack or go directly after militant groups. And look, we don't know whether or not this is luck or good intelligence or just the best surprise attack we've ever seen. Because again, this base has really never been attacked ever between El Tamp base in Syria and El Assad base in Iraq, which are the bases that receive most of the attacks. The main report that is still the narrative but has not yet been 100% confirmed is that the United States military was just simply not prepared at that base, and there was an incoming drone, a US drone, performing duties in the area. It came to land in the base, but at the same time there was a one-way drone launched by militant groups, and because of this there was confusion on the base and they couldn't decipher between the two drones. Something else I have to point out is that the United States also confirmed that a lot of US military members, again, were sleeping during this attack when everything went down. So again, it looks like the United States military, when this attack happened, they either were just caught lacking or there was just not proper security, and that is why we are going to start seeing the beefing up of this specific military outpost with air defenses specifically. So look, we have a very odd mission brief. In one sense, we know exactly who did the attacks, and we know exactly where these attacks were initiated from and where the equipment came from. But in the same sense, we don't necessarily know what exactly happened and how it happened. Again, historically speaking, especially the country of Jordan, militant groups have a very hard time accessing the country because the United States and Jordan actually are really close allies, and they do a very good job at keeping militants away. Iranian-backed militias have a way better chance just walking around the countries of Syria, where a lot of allies work together in that nation, Iranian-backed allies, and they have a lot of ease of access walking around the country of Syria or Iraq. And again, if you wanted to go and check the history of attacks happening on U.S. military bases from the time of October 7th, El Assad base is typically the base mentioned almost every single time in Syria. Now look, we don't know exactly what the Biden administration is going to do. What we do know, though, is that there are members of Congress who are in favor of an all-out escalation, go directly after the country of Iran. And if I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think this is the best decision for the time being. I am not a warmongerer. I am not in favor of war, but I am in favor of justice. In the United States military, especially in the country of Jordan, if they were attacked in a nation that welcomes and hosts the U.S. military, and military members were taken out, the United States, without a doubt, is going to do something about it. Now, real quick, going back to those members of government or Congress, their influence really doesn't have that much say on what happens on the battlefield. Really, it comes down to the risk assessment of the Pentagon and what they deem will be the safest route, especially if the Pentagon is saying we don't want an all-out war. And look, it doesn't take a genius to realize that the Pentagon doesn't want an all-out war, because right now, if the United States started a conflict in the Middle East, Iran has the upper edge. They have way more personnel on the ground, and they could definitely overwhelm the U.S. military right now, because there's only 2,500 people in Iraq right now, U.S. military members confirmed. There's almost nobody in Syria, like literally a handful of soldiers in Syria, and beyond that, you have militant groups that fill the gaps throughout the Middle East that are backed by Iran. Right now, as it stands, the U.S. military is also in an odd position where their main mission in the Middle East is to protect and to help Israel, but like you also have other confliction with reports, because the United States also says, well, we're in the country of Iraq to stop IS. That right now is the justification for the United States being in Iraq, but according to Iraq, they don't really have an IS problem. The only problem they have is that the United States keeps getting attacked by Iranian-backed militias. So the Pentagon and Biden administration need to ensure or make sure, whether or not you agree with this, that the United States does not cause more tension and regional attacks on Israel. That is why Israel has kept threatening and saying that they are willing to go beyond their borders and start to strike Lebanon and Syria more so or more often, and also possibly utilize ground assets, which would technically be an invasion like tanks and Humvees, things like that, to go after those militant assets. Basically, what I'm trying to say is the United States does not want to cause a regional war, because nobody knows if all of a sudden Iraq could turn on the United States or other countries could deem the United States responsible for a regional war, and then all of a sudden say, you know what, we're not partners and friends with you, get out of our country. So I don't want to speculate too hard, but I'm just trying to gather and put all the evidence together. What we do know is that Biden is blaming Iran for the attacks in Jordan, but we also know that the United States and Iran, they don't want to go to war with one another. But we also know that the United States is going to retaliate, but we just don't know the time frame. So we shall see what happens in the Middle East, but this is a rather big revelation. The United States has finally put the blame on Iran and not only Iranian-backed militant groups.